Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Los Banos Talk. My name is Justin Collins, and on tonight's episode, I'm going to tell you and break the news that the city now has a new city manager. I'm going to tell you what I was able to find out about him, what I've learned about the process since inception, and more details and what that means for us here in the city of Los Banos in just a moment, right after a brief message from our sponsor. And we're back. Thanks for watching. So like I said before, the white smoke is cleared and the council has finally picked a new pope. Oh, I'm kidding. I forgot city manager, but it was about as mysterious as selecting a pope. We didn't really have any transparency as far as how the process went. We were largely really just kept in the dark, and the reasoning or logic behind it was HR, personnel, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe that's fine. But at the end of the day, we didn't really know much. But now the veil has been cast aside and we now know some things. So the new city manager is a man by the name of Josh Pinero, and he will start Monday, October 4th, or the time that you're viewing this today. Now, basically, I'm going to give you some of the details of his contract right off the bat, and then a little bit of interpretation. So first of all, he has agreed to a 3-year term that the council unanimously accepted. So he has agreed to all of the terms as followed. So he's going to have an annual base salary of $195,486. He's not going to have any kind of COLA or cost of living adjustment. He is entitled to 2.5% step increases at the 1 and 2 year mark. Of course, like all other city employees, he will have retirement and health benefits. He gets a $400 a month car allowance, a $100 a month cell phone or phone allowance, and a one-time moving expense allotment for $2,500. Now, there's a couple things I actually want to point out about this. This seems extremely high, right? This seems like a lot of money. But actually, when we peel back the layers of the onion, we actually see that this is actually pretty cheap for what we're getting. And I know that sounds crazy me saying because, well, this is a lot of money, of course. Well, the thing is when you look at what city managers usually make and what they usually get, this actually is lower really than the market average, to be honest. And if we're thinking about just in terms of us, this city manager is a lot cheaper than the one we just had. So I'm going to put it into perspective for you, and I'm going to compare it to Alex Terrazas, who was just recently the city manager, but no longer is. So he cost us a lot more. His base salary was about $20,000 more per year. He also got more extra pay for things like he spoke Spanish. He had a master's degree. Those things he also received extra pay for. In addition to that, he asked for a much bigger moving allowance, somewhere in the ballpark of $10,000. And on top of that, the city had to pay, what I'm told from inside sources, about 6 months of the first 6 months of his mortgage and other expenses that just really added up. He also had more fringe benefits, city credit card, and just a variety of different things on top of what I've said. And so my calculations and estimation is that this new city manager costs our city at least about $30,000 less per year than the old one did. So while a lot of people might say, oh, it's too much money, and someone made that point in the public comment, keep in mind that this is actually below market average, and that also this person is getting significantly less than their predecessor, which rarely ever happens. Can you think of a job where the new hire gets a lot less than the person they just replaced? Usually it's more or the same. Now, other things that inside sources have also told me is that essentially he really blew the interviews out of the water, that he was very impressive, and that really after a while it almost wasn't even a competition, that he really impressed everyone and was even like the first to show up at interviews, was very inquisitive, and really seemed eager and wanted to do the job. Another thing about this guy that I've been able to find out is that he's actually from Los Banos. So he's native to Los Banos and does care about the community. Now, he currently technically does not live in Los Banos, but he is already moving back and has already made plans and is probably going to be here living here probably within the next week or so, from what I've been told. A little bit about his background and qualifications. So that's kind of an interesting point to bring up. He wasn't selected by the recruiters, and from my understanding, I believe he has a bachelor's degree. He's considered a very successful businessman. He owns a variety of properties and works in a variety of businesses, and seemingly would have business connections. Just so you're not taking my word for it, I'm going to cut to what Mayor Tom Faria had to say about it.
And before I call for a motion, Mr. Pinheiro brings with him something unique, and that is that he grew up in Los Banos, understands Los Banos' needs, challenges, understands the people. He has connections to the business world. We've been talking a lot about bringing living wage jobs, more living wage jobs to Los Banos. And Mr. Pinheiro's connections and his, of course, I've known Mr. Pinheiro for a very long time. He was in school with my daughters. And he is of the highest integrity. He's highly intelligent and he's highly motivated. So we'll look for him to bring those attributes to our city and make our city a better place. And so we will welcome Mr. Pinheiro with the approval of this contract this evening. Chair will entertain a motion.
And so, as you can see, the mayor spoke very highly of him. It's not just one or two people. Actually, unanimously, the council seems to be really behind and enthusiastic about hiring this person. And I also spoke with Brett Jones about this because Councilman Jones was mentioned in the public comment as someone who was an advocate for this person because he knew them back in college. And basically what he told me is that he really likes this guy and thinks that he's really qualified for the job, that he's very inquisitive, insightful, and a real go-getter and fast-paced moving. He likes the fact, and not actually just him, the entire council seems to like the fact that he is not from a government background, which is something that most people would hold against him. But they actually like the fact that he has management experience, but not necessarily government experience, because he looks at the problem with a fresh set of eyes from a neutral point of view. One of the things that Brett told me was he was just been absolutely tired of getting constant excuses from past city managers and people in staff positions, basically saying, oh, that's the way we've always done it. No, you can't. And essentially becoming masters of giving excuses. And a lot of people in government, frankly, tend to kind of get that way and get really good at finding reasons we can't do something, as opposed to looking for things we can. It's like I read in a book once, don't think about the problem, think about the solution. And so the idea here is that he brings a different perspective and that he would pursue something that maybe someone else would not and get something done. And also, he seems to be on, as Brett put it, team council, meaning that he would actually implement and carry out the things that the council wants, which is important because Alex Terrazas honestly wasn't carrying out things and doing things against the council's wishes, which is frustrating. One of the things that I think is important to bring up now is what actually the city manager does. And if you want to think about it, it's actually what most of you think the mayor does. The truth is that the city manager is the chief executive of the city government. And essentially, what this means is that he executes the will of the city and also the various ordinances and manages staff, etc. And so he's the equivalent of what we would think of the president, really, of the city. But it's kind of interesting and different because he's not elected, but he is chosen by the city council. And the city council only hires and fires one person, and that be the city manager. So it's extremely crucial to have a good city manager simply because that is really where the rubber meets the road. City council can put things out there, etc., but they need someone who can actually get it done. And there's a lot of things you could think about: charisma, drive, passion, innovativeness. There's all kinds of characteristics that you might want to look for, institutional knowledge in a city manager. But at the end of the day, you definitely want someone who is going to do what you're asking of them and come up with ways to get that done. And the council seems to believe that this man is that person. Now, of course, how good a job he does, or if any of these expectations are necessarily true, it's really hard to say. No one knows, of course, at this point. We'll just have to wait and see. But at this point, based on how enthusiastic council has been about this person, and I've also had inside sources essentially tell me that he's already kind of started working, even though he's not there yet, and has already started looking into things, brushing up on things, meeting people, etc. And so, from what I can see from my perspective, he seems to be truly, really invested into this and committed fully. And so that makes me optimistic that this will go well. I could be wrong, but I'm actually optimistic that this is going to be a good city manager for us based on what I have seen and heard thus far and based on the statements made by council members. One of the things I would like to point out as well is that everyone applied in the same manner, went through the same process in the interviews, and this is ultimately the outcome. We really didn't get to see any of the process, so it's really hard for us to really say, was it fair, was it not? But what we do know is that they put out for everyone to apply. People applied, they interviewed, and then this is the result. And we assume that it was the same questions, etc., for everybody. That's the best we could do. That's really all we know at this point. You can always count on Los Banos Talk to keep you informed on what's going on politically, events, news, history, what city government's doing, etc., and more. And you don't have to be reliant anymore on the Facebook algorithm or Instagram newsfeed to bring you my content. Instead, you can get all the videos straight to your email and articles as well by subscribing at losbanostalk.com. Once again, my name is Justin Collins, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.